The Turtle Beach Velocity 1 is a PC and Xbox compatible yoke, which also features a fully integrated throttle. It has a nice array of buttons on the symmetrically laid out yoke, including 4 hat switches, 2 on the left and 2 on the right. It has 2 push buttons on the front, 1 on either side of the yoke, as well as 2 trigger buttons on each side, the lower of which is a fully analog axis. 4 Xbox style buttons are offset on the front, as well as 4 beneath a very bright and clear LCD panel. This panel helps you navigate the various features of the yoke. Under the yoke is an LED warning panel. This has a magnetically removable cover plate, with another of these included in the box so you can fully customize your warning display. The yoke has a unique clamping system, which is hidden beneath a magnetic cover on the top. Under this cover is a hex key, which is used to drop 2 clamps, which are concealed under the yoke. This keeps the unit compact and sleek, and the clamps do a very good job of securely attaching the yoke. The throttle attaches easily via a side mounting system and is also very easy to remove for storage. The throttle doesn't clamp to the desk, and there is some noticeable wobble and play on the connection between the two. I was also very surprised to see that the electronic connections aren't inside this mounting system. Instead, you have to connect the throttle to the yoke via an included USB-C cable. The throttle includes 4 throttle levers, and these can be set up for either general aviation aircraft or airliners. Below the throttle are 10 programmable switches which have nice bright backlighting, and beneath this are Cessna-style pull-push throttle prop and mixture levers, and that is a unique feature to this yoke. The throttle quadrant also includes a trim wheel which has a really nice amount of resistance, and I was very pleasantly surprised to find out that Microsoft Flight Simulator treats this as an analog axis. The yoke includes a large colour quick start guide which was extremely easy to follow. This helped me get the yoke up and running in just a couple of minutes. Microsoft Flight Simulator recognised the yoke out of the box, and everything was working as expected in my initial flight. I'm extremely pleased that this yoke has a full 180-degree rotation to it, making it more true to life. The action on the yoke was smooth, but personally, I prefer a yoke with more resistance than the Velocity 1 had. I also found the very strong self-centering tendency of the yoke was far too strong. With a very noticeable detent in the centre position, and despite the lack of resistance across the yoke's travel, the amount of force that was required to push the yoke out of this detent was quite high indeed. Combine this with a general lack of resistance across the remainder of the travel, it made putting small, controlled, subtle inputs into the yoke very difficult to do indeed. This lack of resistance combined with an overly firm lock into the centre wasn't limited to the yoke. I found exactly the same problem on the throttle levers. Lots of force required to get them out of their detent, and then an immediate lack of resistance on the axis, which meant that the throttle levers just largely fell forward. This makes subtle power control almost impossible to do. I also think the absence of tension control is very disappointing, and frankly this is a must-have feature on today's throttles. Now you might say I'm splitting hairs here and being overly critical, but remember, this thing retails for $380. That's 350 UK pounds. That's a significant chunk of change to drop on a throttle and a yoke. It also lacks a flap control lever, which arguably you could assign to one of the programmable buttons, but this just isn't the same as reaching for a flap lever as you're turning bass or turning final. The analog triggers, which are intended as a replacement for rudder pedals, work okay, but frankly they don't have adequate travel to make them a viable alternative. You're definitely going to need assistance for the rudder switched on within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, despite these criticisms, the trim wheel really is very excellent indeed. Frankly, it's the best I've used. Unlike the rest of the device, it has a really nice amount of resistance, and the fact that Microsoft Flight Simulator treats it like an analog axis is really excellent. This is much better than the Bravo Throttle quadrant, which just gives you a button push as you turn it in either direction. No other device can make the claim that as you turn the trim wheel, whether you do that quickly or slowly, the rate of that rotation is matched by what you see inside the sim. But this doesn't make up for ultimately what is a poor implementation on the Yoke, and frankly an even worse throttle. The LCD panel on the front certainly is nice, as are the warning LEDs, and I do like the push-pull throttle levers, albeit again they lacked resistance and did have some noticeable wobble and travel. The way in which the throttle attaches is innovative, as is the clamping system, but these are the bells and whistles you should add on when the core product is working brilliantly. And it feels like Turtle Beach are focused on these more than the function of the Yoke and throttle. So if you're a PC user, I can't recommend this product. The Alpha Yoke from Honeycomb is a far superior product. Even combining this with a Logitech throttle quadrant will give you a better experience, and that setup is less cash. And for not a lot more money than the Turtle Beach Velocity 1, you can get the excellent Alpha Yoke and the excellent Bravo Throttle, and this continues to remain my favourite flight sim combination. For Xbox users, this is a little more complicated, as the only other Yoke available at the time of making this video is the Boeing Yoke from Thrustmaster, and that's clearly intended for airliners. There is an Xbox variant of Honeycomb Aeronautical's Alpha Yoke on the way. This was announced back in September, however, since then it's all gone very quiet, so we don't currently have a clear release date. So if you absolutely need a Yoke for Xbox, for general aviation aircraft, and you need it right now, this kind of is your only choice. But if you can get by with the Thrustmaster HOTAS and wait, I really would try and do that. And wait for the Honeycomb Aeronautical Alpha Yoke variant for the Xbox. The Honeycomb product will have less bells and whistles, but the core mechanics are absolutely spot on. The Turtle Beach feels arcadey. It feels a bit more like their controller and headset lineup. It doesn't feel like they've really understood their customer here, and they've missed the mark. We've awarded the Turtle Beach 2 out of 5 stars. It's form over function, it gets the key features wrong, and it's a very expensive product for what it is. It doesn't constitute good value for money. Check out this Flight Sim Peripheral playlist for alternatives. As always, I hope you're very well wherever in the world you are. Stay safe in the skies, and I'll see you in my next one.